Eddie Muller here, welcoming you once again to Noir Alley. Today's film is what I call an example of proto-noir. It's Out of the Fog, produced at Warner Brothers in 1941, the same year the studio released the picture I consider the progenitor of the noir movement, The Maltese Falcon. Thanks to cinematography by the great James Wong Howe, Out of the Fog looks more like everybody's idea of noir than The Falcon, but it's more representative of the politically fueled New York theater of the 1930s than it is the cinematic movement that washed over Hollywood in the following decade. Out of the Fog was originally a stage play called The Gentle People, written in 1939 by young New York native Irwin Shaw. Shaw moved easily between writing plays, film scripts, and novels in a career that would extend into the 1980s and included well-known works such as The Talk of the Town, The Young Lions, and Rich Man, Poor Man. He described this story as a Brooklyn fairy tale, but when it was staged by the group theater, neither critics nor the public could miss the analogies to the rising tide of fascism that would soon pull America into World War II. The story revolves around a couple of simple working stiffs whose dreams of starting their own fishing business are thwarted by a lone gangster demanding protection money. Not only that, the crook decides to lay claim to one of their daughters as well. Warner Brothers won a bidding war for the rights to the play. Even though the fishermen are the gentle people of the story's original title, the film version was refashioned to put more emphasis on the romance between the young daughter and the brash racketeer. Ann Sheridan was briefly considered for the part of Stella Goodwin, but when High Sierra hit big for Warner's in January 1941, the project became a vehicle for Ida Lupino. Humphrey Bogart was, of course, considered for the role of gangster Harold Goff, but Lupino nixed the idea. She didn't like the way Bogart had treated her during the making of High Sierra, and she made no bones about it to the studio brass. More to her liking was up-and-coming young rebel John Garfield. They'd just made The Seawolf together and had become fast friends. Not coincidentally, Garfield was a preeminent member of the group theater, well-versed in this type of simple but potent material. Although unlike Bogart, he'd never before played an outright and unrepentant villain. Adapting the play for the screen was a trio of heavyweights. Richard Macaulay and Jerry Wald were a prolific team at Warner's during the 1930s, mostly rewriting scripts to conform to the studio's production dictates. They'd make many changes to this script that were demanded by the Production Code Office. I'll discuss some of them after the film, since it's a lesson in how what worked on a New York stage was often prohibited on America's movie screens. Also contributing to the script was young Robert Rawson, who, like Irwin Shaw and John Garfield, had cut his teeth working in New York theater. Rawson was a member of the Communist Party of the United States, who typically tried to inject a strong anti-fascist slant into his scripts, especially 1937's They Won't Forget and The Seawolf in 1940. Ukrainian-born director Anatol Litvak started out in the Russian theater and had been making films in Hollywood for about 4 years, including 1939's Confessions of a Nazi Spy, a daring film that featured newsreel footage of Nazi rallies in America. He'd already directed Garfield in the 1940 picture Castle on the Hudson, and he was right at home conducting this archly theatrical production entirely within the confines of Warner Brothers sound stages. Co-starring Thomas Mitchell and John Quaylen as the gentle people of the original title, here is Out of the Fog.